record. All right, I'm gonna record. I mean, I'll be editing it anyhow. So I figure one way for us to start is at least for you to tell people your name, who you are, where you live, that kind of thing, and then um, talk a little bit, share a little bit with us about your start in yoga. Uh, oh, and then I told people I have to share how come I call you my personal yoga cheerleader. So why don't you go ahead?
Hi. So, hi everybody. I am Jacquitta. I go by this Curvi Yogi on all platforms. I try to keep it uniform because who wants to sit and try to find something in a different name?
Right?
I am a yoga. I am a 200-hour yoga instructor. I've been teaching for 3 years. I've been practicing for about 6 years, which sounds like a long time now that I talk about it because I keep thinking that it's only been like 3 years.
Yeah, huh, right?
So, yeah, I started yoga back in 2014, and that was when I was in grad school.
Yes,
And
that's
I
right.
was in grad school full time at the moment. I was also working full time. And then about 6 months later, maybe a year later, I started teacher training. So I'm doing all of this at once.
Talk about
my
overwhelming.
Yeah, my original reason for coming to yoga was I needed something that would allow me to have time to myself because I felt like I was just being pulled in so many directions. And I mean, just having a job and um, going to school is a lot, but it's not as much as other people have done, but it's a lot for me.
Excuse me.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I was just kind of trying to find something that would give me some time and space to myself. And so of course I started really with this like really easy yoga app that was on my computer.
Oh,
It was like very easy flows, like kind of it'll go through a sun salutation, it will go through different poses. And I was just trying at home. I was like, oh, this is nice. So I would end up doing yoga for hours. This was when I first started. So 1 to 2 hours was like my complete time. And it was usually at night because I was
wow.
definitely a night owl. So like 11 p.m. to like 1 p.m. I'd be up doing yoga and trying stuff. And then I magically got on Instagram and I started seeing people doing yoga. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I started seeing challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing those. And this is when I'm first starting yoga. I'm in a handstand challenge, knowing goodness well that I do not need to be in a handstand challenge. And I was like, okay, we're gonna try this. I wish I could find the video. It was so funny. It wasn't funny at the moment,
Right.
but it was funny because I fell on my head. Like I
Oh my
remember because I
God.
had a I had I had a seat there and I had this space between my dining room table and my seat. And so I would kick up against the wall there. And
Oh my God.
one day I kicked up. I was like, oh, I made it. And then boom, I just kind of fell. And it was like a slow-mo fall. Like, you kind of, kind of fell down on my head over to my shoulder. And then I just kind of rolled on the floor. And I just sat there for a while. I was like, let me just sit here and think about what I did. You know, when a kid does something wrong and the
Right, right,
mom
right, right.
yells at them, that's what I felt like. I just yelled at myself, like, girl, sit down. This is not, this is not it right now.
Oh my God. You're lucky you didn't hurt yourself, girl.
I know. And I don't know why I kept going back and doing it again. I still kept doing it.
You still
But
kept
I
doing
remember that was one of my first experiences with handstand. But ever since then, I was obsessed with it. And so like I kept doing these challenges and kept doing them and posting. And um, finally I decided to go to a local class. It was a local, I can't remember if it was, see, this is where it gets tricky for me. I'm not good at remembering
Yeah,
like
I'm not either.
everything, but it was either an outdoor yoga class with my yoga teacher, or it was one of her workshops at, it's another studio in town that she was working at the time. So I can't remember which one came first, but I do remember practicing with her, and I kept coming to the classes. And
Mm-hmm.
mostly because she looked more of my body type at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
like a little bit on the thicker side. And I was like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept going to her classes, kept going to her beginner workshops, and um, soon she opened her own studio, and
Oh.
I started going there as well. And so she was starting a teacher training. So she reached out to me and she was like, I think you'd make a great teacher if you would like to try the teacher program. So I was a part of her first teacher training, which was a good experience considering what other people have said is hell, I'm sure. I
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
the only Black woman in the training. I was the I wasn't the only person of size, I don't think. I think we had a
Mm-hmm.
very diverse group of people of size, slimmer people. Um, we did have a guy in the group. We had older, younger. Everybody was kind of a big, diverse group. So that was a good experience for me because I like to be around a diverse group of people and not to
Right.
feel like I'm the only marginalized person in there,
Mm-hmm.
in one section. Um, so yeah, I went through her training and then I started working at the studio and I've been there for 3 years working.
Wow.
So I
See?
love it. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the few studios that I hear about and that I've been to that is very welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
We have different levels of teachers. Everyone has a different style of teaching. And I think the thing that we all share is that um, we want to create a family of people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that come to our classes.
And
So
where is
even if
this
you come in,
located? Tell people where this is located.
oh, I'm just talking. This is in
Yeah.
Greenville, North Carolina. So so the studio is Yogi Vibe Studio, and it is the manager of the studio is Samantha Harrison. So that's where I teach. That's where I've been teaching. I've taught a little bit at a dance studio also, but I told you before that studio unfortunately closed down because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an awesome experience too, because that was a pole studio. So that was a whole different
Oh
group
yeah.
of people who weren't really looking for yoga, but it was more of
Mm-hmm.
a stretching class. But I mean, yoga is a lifestyle. So it's like you can kind
It's
of
true.
instill in people, look, you gotta breathe through things. You have to, if you want to be flexible, quote unquote, you have to breathe through certain postures and figure out what works for your body, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that's kind of the approach I took with that class in that studio.
So your
Yeah.
experience is so different than some other people that I've talked about, just in terms of being the only person of color at that studio, asking, at least in your class, but having
Hmm.
the owner approach you, which means that that person really had to be open and welcoming from jump. You know what I mean?
Right.
um
Right.
that your gut, probably, I'm sure you're probably like me, your gut tells you someone's sincerity,
Right.
and integrity.
My
um
thought, yeah, my thought at that time was if she reached out to me, then she saw something in me
right.
that I didn't see at the time. I was just trying to try something new.
Right.
So I thought about it and I went ahead because I was like, that was a personal invitation.
Exactly. Exactly. Which, means a lot. A lot. Totally. Not something that, in my experience, that I had. I mean, I mean, like, the furthest thing from it. But that's a whole nother story. I think I shared some of it in some of the other conversations. But yeah, definitely the furthest thing from it. Tell us, or maybe we should talk a little bit about, because we've had some offline conversation. Oh, wait a minute. First, let me tell people. So I only remember when we met, but it was definitely on IG. And it was a while ago. We were still in Fort Myers in the condo. So I know that's about
Yep. Just
years
about
ago.
5 years, I'm pretty sure.
Just about 5 years ago. And we connected. I don't know. I think it could have been a challenge. I'm not exactly sure because I remember one of the things that you said to me. You invited me to a challenge, and I said, I can't do that. And you said to me, how you think you're going to get better if you don't challenge? I still remember that. It stays resonant in my head. And then I remember taking a picture because I used to do my yoga in our spare room. I'm taking a picture and I'm sitting in so-called easy seat. And you said, girl, put your knees down. And I said, this is down. I still remember that. I was like, this is as far down as these tight ass hips will go. I mean, they weren't going anywhere. And I'm like, what's she talking about? I can't put my knees down. I can't sit like that. I can't do
that comes from somebody who's naturally has open hips, I guess you want to say.
Yeah.
And I just didn't realize that everybody's hips weren't like mine.
You sure did. You said, girl, put your knees down. My knees, I'm just telling everybody, seriously, I got to find that picture. My knees looked like they were up by my shoulders. I am not kidding. So I tell people that if I could get these knees down that are almost pretty much flat now, it's taken a long time, to the ground, right, and can do kind of a little bit, maybe it's more like a quarter lotus as opposed to a half lotus. Mm-hmm. It's getting to the half lotus thing. When my knees were like this, seriously, then anybody can. Right. Just remember, and you have this way, and this is probably what she saw in you. You have a way of encouraging, supporting, in a very straightforward kind of way, like, girl, put your knees down. And I think
I've been told that before.
Yes, see, I'm good at that. I can pick that up. So she probably picked that up because you just would keep saying, well, keep doing it. And I'm like, oh, because I don't like whiners. Hopefully I wasn't a whiner. Whining sort of pushes every button that I have, which is a little weird being a psychotherapist by training, by the way. So I have to own it because sometimes I just got to get the therapy face and the therapy vibe going because it's just like, oh my God, the whining is, just don't whine, please. But I can remember complaining about this, like, no way. And so that mindset that sometimes we have in yoga that you can't, occasionally will pop in, but not so much anymore because I realize you put in the time, you'd be surprised what you can do. You put in the time and you cannot look at it. It's definitely a journey. I think people think it's just like a little bit like walking around the corner and there you go. I'm going to pop up on my head. Or, my knees are going to go down or I'm going to be able to do crow pose or whatever. It's not like that.
Ooh, no.
So it's such a plus to know someone who's like you, who in that sort of stereotypic, which thank God we're slowly getting out of, which is one reason why I started this whole thing. Getting out of that, it's a very thin European descent female who is a yogi. And we're getting so much further away from that and trying very hard to encourage the broader base and the wider range of inclusion and diversity in yoga, yoga in its full range, not just asana. Because for people of color, we need yoga, honest. I mean, and now we probably, everybody needs yoga at this point. But as we continue to face some of the microaggressions and the things that have been going on really worldwide, in particular in the US, but worldwide, it is so important to have something in your toolbox that allows you to decompress, reconnect, let go of, sort of the crap that can build up, for sure. So, has that been something that you've had to deal with, some of that crap that I just said?
Microaggressions, all of that. See, um, yoga is not my full-time gig, so I do work.
Mhm.
I work as an accountant during the day.
Mhm.
Um, so to speak to that, yes, because I am the only Black person in my office.
Uh-huh.
Um, there was one more, but she moved away, and then it was just me. And then it makes it worse because the place that I work at also has other Black people, but they work in the warehouse.
I
And
see.
so I don't get to interact with them as much as I would like.
Ah.
And then you have that whole hierarchy thing. People, you might think you're better than everyone because you work in the office and
Mm.
all of that stuff. And then just dealing with microaggressions, like I'm always, not always, but when I first started working there, I've been there for almost 5 years. When I first started working there, I feel like everything was judged from my attitude to my work ethic, all of that stuff, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to reviews. I've never liked reviews for that reason, because I knew that there was going to be something in there about my attitude, which I do not have.
Mm.
Um, and that's because I think mainly because they can't read my face. I just kind
Right.
of keep a straight face,
Right.
and I go in, I do my work, and I go home. I don't do a lot of extra things. And so
Mhm.
I did get some reviews back that were like, you know, basically I need to fix my attitude. Like, people thought I had an attitude because I wouldn't say certain things or wouldn't act a certain way. I'm like, I'm not
Mm.
being rude to you. I speak to you. Just because I don't carry on a conversation all the time does not mean that I'm being mean.
Right.
Still deal with that a little bit, but not as much as I used to.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of bit the bullet. I was like, let me just go to a company outing every once in a while so they can't say that I'm being antisocial. Um,
Mm.
Let me, engage in a few conversations so they can't say that I'm being mean. And then
Mm.
let me have the days where I'm just like at my desk and they still ask me what's wrong, but
Isn't
there's
that
nothing wrong. I
interesting?
just don't want to talk.
Right. Like
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm fine. Why is it that you continue to interpret the fact that I'm quiet or to myself as something is
Right.
wrong? Which to me speaks to their discomfort, not yours.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's part of the, I mean, I don't even know if the company does diversity and inclusion trainings or whatnot. Not that trainings are the be all and the end all. But people, when you find yourself the only in those situations, which we often find ourselves, if we're in a profession, if we're professional people of color, professional Black
Hmm.
women out in the world, we often, 99.9% of the time, are going to find ourselves in places and positions where we're the only one. And
Right.
I don't really think that people of European descent understand the stress of trying to walk that balance of, let me maybe go to a couple of outings so y'all will back off. I'm fine.
Right.
Because
Right.
that creates stress in and of itself.
Hmm.
And I don't know,
You
I've
have
had
to live
those, yeah,
two different lives per
very much
se.
so.
Um, you have your work life and you have your after work life, and I'm like, I kind of want to keep those separate, because if you keep asking me about my after work life, I'm going to keep having to explain things that are Black culture to you, and I don't want to.
Right. And
Like,
right.
I'm already at work stressed. I don't want to have to talk to you about my outside life, and then you're not going to understand anything. There are a few, I would say there is one person that I think is more progressive in their thinking. So when I do tell them things, they do act, well, not act, but they're more interested in it. Like tell me more. I didn't know this was going on, you know.
Right.
So there's only a few people that I can talk to about stuff that I do outside of work, because they're more open to different things. Other
Right.
people, they're just like, you don't know who, like it can be something as simple as a white artist. They're like, oh, you don't know who this is? I'm like, no. Am I
Right.
supposed to?
Right.
Or if I listen to a white artist or somebody of some other descent, then it's like, oh, you listen to them? Why
There you
not?
go. Why wouldn't I? Right? Music is
Why wouldn't
universal,
I?
ain't it? Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
music. I'm like, I love music, and one of my favorite artists is white. So,
Right.
I mean, I can't. It's little things like that that kind of get on your nerves, and just you just take it day by day,
Right.
and you kind of do what you have to do.
One of the things I remember you turned me on to listening to this podcast. I can't remember the name, so it's probably good because I really want to call the person out, but I can't remember the name. So I listened to the podcast, and there was a woman of East Indian descent, doctor, who was sharing about her experience and the issues of appropriation of yoga. And one of the things that really stuck, we chatted about this a little bit online, was the whole concept of namaste.
Mhm.
And if you want to go ahead and share what she said about that, which was an awakening in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't remember the full conversation, but I know the main point of it was namaste is a greeting. It's weird when people say namaste at the end of class, because it's not, it's like you're saying hello at the end
At
when
the
you're
end of the
leaving.
class. Right.
And I mean, I've heard that before, but I just never took it to heart, I guess, because I never heard the other point of view of it. And that's why I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, to find people of Indian descent, because that's where I got my 200 hour from, is the Indian um, side of yoga, which we
Right.
also have the African side of yoga, but
Exactly.
that's where my background is in. So I was like, it interests me to hear the Western yoga perception from people who are from the East, people who actually
Exactly.
live their lifestyles with
That
yoga
is
in it.
Exactly. That is their lifestyle. And I think that that's what struck me. Because I'm like you, I think I heard that. But for whatever reason, I didn't really take it to heart either. It's not like I changed anything about how I respond when teaching yoga or whatever. But I think it was the fact that this woman, and I'll try to find out who she is so that I can put it in the comments so people might want to look for her. When she talked about, this is what we grew up with. You didn't need a mat. You didn't need all the fancy clothes. What was a mat? I mean, you got up in the morning and this is what you did. This is what our
Right.
family did. It just made it so much more personal and real in a way that I
Mhm.
hadn't thought about. So now I find myself cringing when I hear people go, and at the end we go namaste. I find myself going, no, you might want to do that at the beginning.
And it's an internal struggle, because I'm like, we're so used to saying namaste at the end of class as teachers. And I'm like, I struggle because I know that students know that the namaste is coming. So like, if
Right,
I stop it,
right,
it's going to be like oh, class is over now. I thought we
right.
were going to say namaste. That's what I fear. And I'm trying to figure out a way to end class. Like, I say a lot of stuff at the end of class anyway, which I could just end it with that. It's
Right.
basically this over type thing. But it's just, I guess the word just feels like it seals it. It's like an amen at the end of prayer. And you're just like,
Yeah, I know. Isn't it? It's fascinating. So, I mean, I haven't taught a class actually since COVID. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm thinking that one thing, even bringing it up here, one thing that I will do is to actually educate people at the start of class
Mhm.
and just take 5 minutes to say we generally end the class with Namaste. I'm going to start because of this reason with I'm going to begin the class with Namaste. And I usually sort of do something with intention setting or something in the beginning anyway.
Right.
So it kind of like
Mhm.
fits. And then at the end, I'm always, during Shavasana, I'm doing a little bit of a small meditation and I may share. And then I'll end it with, something that just seems more natural for me. But I think I'm just
Right.
going to start saying that to people. So, y'all might freak out because the namaste is going to come at the beginning and not the end. But when
Right.
we learn something new, we are responsible for making the change. I mean, I said that in one of the other discussions in one way or another. But it's like, if we don't make the change, then it's like you just ignore that it's important to somebody else.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think I'm definitely going to should I ever get the opportunity to do that, but
And definitely for us as Black women to ignore the culture of somebody else is like we're screaming for people to
mm,
for equality from other people, but we don't do the same thing in return. That would be
right,
kind of a hypocritical act.
definitely,
Um,
definitely,
so that's one reason why I'm just like I have to figure out a way to end class without saying namaste. And I think what you said is a good option to educate your students because most of the time, if you're teaching regularly, you have the same students. So they're coming
right,
in, they know the routine, they kind of know where you're going with it. And if you
mm-hmm,
educate them at the beginning of the class, they'll kind of think about it and they'll be like, okay, like they're used to you're their teacher, so they're gonna listen.
right,
So I think I'm gonna do that from now on.
and it'll kind of spread a little bit. The one thing that I did in that I'm just going to quickly say this. That at that podcast was the actual person who runs the podcast. There was this very quick little piece where she's talking with the doctor and she says, because clearly they know they're going to discuss the whole issue of Indian yoga and appropriation. And she says, like I read something about, Africa and yoga. And she chuckled and it pushed every button I had. And so I sent her a note. Did she respond? No, she did not respond.
She didn't.
No, no, she did not.
So
And I
that
did it.
podcast, 'cause I know what you're talking. I know the person that you're talking about. I listened to the podcast. Um, it is the Connected Yoga Teacher with Shannon Crow.
Exactly. Hmm.
I don't know the name of the doctor that actually was the guest on that episode though. So that
Yeah,
would
I
be
can't
something that we have to
remember.
look.
Right.
But yeah,
And it's like, well, did you not get the email? So I sent it again just in case it went to junk mail.
hmm
And it's like, so I just said, I'm sending this again. And I actually said, I hope you accept this in the spirit of which I offer it and my perception of it, because intention is one thing, but how it's received from somebody else is a whole nother thing. Your intention may not have been to
right,
slight whatever the history is about Kemetic yoga and Africa. However, as a person of African descent, my head went tilt, a little bit.
hmm
And so whoever you are, yoga teacher, should be made aware that, you know, but no, man, she didn't. She did not even respond. So yeah, I don't know what else to do about it other than to let it go. But I'm the kind of person that it's very hard to let go of stuff like that
right.
because
And to
then you
me,
shouldn't be doing
the
yoga.
best way to respond, right?
Hmm,
The best way for her to respond is to at least address it in the email, if not on the podcast, because that's where
exactly.
the original
Right.
infraction was done.
Right.
Um, but we know, I guess some people also just don't know what to do when they get bad emails
Right.
or
And
bad
or,
comments.
or they take it in the wrong way or they feel uncomfortable. Let's face it, not everybody knows how to respond to issues around inclusion and diversity. It's not something we were taught in
Mm-hmm.
school. And people get defensive. It's happened to me in many trainings that I do around the issue. People just automatically protect themselves. And it's like, I'm not shooting you. I am just speaking and making you aware. And if you can't be open to the awareness, even if you step aside and say, let me think about that a minute. Let me just, because I often have to back up and say, okay,
And
okay,
that's what
okay,
we
okay.
should do. I think a lot of people just don't know how to handle conflict in general.
Thank
Like
you.
a lot of people aren't confrontational. I'm not confrontational, but I will tell you in a minute, let me think about this answer because I'm not sure about,
Right,
how to respond to this. But
right.
I will answer you because I know that not answering someone says a lot about you
Mm-hmm.
more than it does them.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Well, we only have a few more minutes left, and I'm wondering if there's anything that you would want to share or make people aware of. We definitely have to pick up another conversation because this is certainly just not enough time to cover everything we would like to talk about. But is there anything that you would like to say or share, anything at all with people about these issues or concerns?
I just want to say that I think that you should educate yourself. Whatever your passion is, wherever it lies, educate yourself on the other side of it.
Mm,
Because just because we want to display love and light all the time doesn't mean it's always going to be love and light. And
yeah.
that's what I work hard to display in my brand is both sides of yoga, like the good, the bad, the ugly. And it may not resonate with everyone, that's fine, but I want to be able to represent it as the lifestyle that it is.
Right.
So whatever you're doing, whatever your passion is, research it, continue to learn, do your continuing education, whether it's just you doing it on your own or doing some kind of professional learning, but just do what you can to keep yourself educated and on top of things and keep an open mind because that's the thing
Mm,
that's going to get you through a lot of these issues is keeping an open mind. A lot of times we deal with people who do not have open minds and are not receptive to change, and it's hard to get through to them, especially when we try to express our opinions.
yeah.
So that's it. Keep an open mind and keep yourself educated.
Keep yourself educated. And not everything is love and light, people. Not everything is love and light. And I think that that's key. So, and you can't cover it because you can see through that
Mm-mm.
crap. When people try to cover, you can see through it. So, no, you love and light folks that think you covering, we see you. You love and light people that don't cover and are real, we
Mm-hmm.
see you too. And we really appreciate it. Thanks so much for taking the time to share. And when we pick back up at the end, I think I have a couple more for the towards the end of this year. But when we pick back up, my plan is at the beginning of the year, we're gonna have to continue this conversation.
I agree, and I'll be
Definitely.
ready.
And
Yeah.
she be ready. Thanks so much. Love you much. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right.
Take care. Maybe I'll figure this out. Oh, maybe it stopped on. Did it stop on its own? Well, I don't know.
Did it?
I don't know. Oh, oh no.